Hello and welcome to Uncommon Law, my podcast about true stories from my life experience of over 50 years as a lawyer and trial judge. This is a look at the law from the inside out, stuff they don't teach in law school. This is Judge Rudy Greco, retired Justice of the New York State Supreme Court. I was just married, and my wife Melanie and I had a nice little apartment in Jackson Heights in the same building where her oldest sister Geraldine and brother-in-law Walter lived. They tipped us off to this apartment, and it was really nice. Jackson Heights then was a nice neighborhood, but it was in decline. It had been a very upper middle class neighborhood when it started in the teens, 1913, 14. And it was very, very high end, and it was started gradually to decline. But it wasn't a bad neighborhood. I don't want to convey that impression. It was a very, very good neighborhood. It just wasn't as good as it had been, and later on it got turned around again. In any event, at that particular time, there was a generational change going on, and also there was an influx of Colombian immigrants into Jackson Heights because one of the local priests had been a missionary in Colombia, and some Colombians followed him when he was reassigned to St. Joan of Arc, our parish in Jackson Heights. And the Colombians were very, very good people, just like most immigrants, no different from all the other immigrants, very good. In fact, they did a lot to bring Jackson Heights back over the years. But they had a criminal element, too, as the Italians did, as the Jews did, as the Germans did, as the Irish did, everybody, the black and African-American people did. Everybody has a small criminal element in there, and you can't condemn them all for that. But at this particular time, they were clustered in Jackson Heights, and it was the height of the crack and cocaine epidemics. And there were rival cartels from different cities, including like Cali or Medellin, and they were shooting up the neighborhood. They weren't shooting up innocent people. They were shooting each other up. But it was going on at that particular time. In fact, one muckraking, well-known Latin American reporter, a magazine writer, was assassinated right outside a restaurant right off Roosevelt Avenue, Mason, Asturias. He was gunned down in a hail of bullets because he had been exposing some of the members of the cartels and what they were doing. Well, my sister-in-law, Geraldine, had her car parked under another apartment house 5 blocks away. We lived on 83rd Street, and this was on around 87th Street. And she got me a parking space, which was very good because garage space was at a premium in Jackson Heights, and the 5 blocks were no big thing. They were city blocks. It wasn't like they were very, very long. You know, they were the regular short city blocks, and it was an easy walk. And it was a summer night. I had dropped my wife off at the house, and I said, I'll go park the car and put it away. And I did. I pulled into the garage, and parked it, left the windows down in case anybody broke into the garage. I didn't want them to break into my car. Let them have. There was nothing in the car that I didn't care if they stole, so it didn't matter. But I didn't want them breaking the windows, so I did that. Shut the car and walked out. Walked up the driveway, made a left from 87th Street to 25, 30 feet to 37th Avenue, where I had to make another left to proceed from 87th Street to 83rd Street, where I lived. And it was after 1 o'clock in the morning. I made the turn on 37th Avenue, and I no sooner made the turn, proceeded a couple of feet, and a car pulled up. There was no traffic. Nobody was out on the street. It was a quiet night. It was a weekday night. And there were 2 passengers in the car. And it was a late model. I remember it was a late model Chevrolet. They were very, very slow, and they pulled alongside of me to get a good look at me. And I looked at them, and what I saw were 2 hard, cold, sinister-looking guys. Both of them had snake eyes. I mean, they were cold, ice cold. And it reminded me of later on, decades later, Vladimir Putin, when I think it was President Bush said he looked in Putin's eyes and saw his soul. Nonsense. That guy he has the cold eyes of a killer. And these guys had the same cold, merciless eyes. They just looked at me, and it might as well be x-rays. They were trying to get a very close look at me. Well, my instincts, I grew up on the street. My instincts first were, I recognized that these guys were bad news. And my first instinct was to run. But I said to myself, if I run, I'll never get away. First of all, if I run down straight ahead, they're going to chase me with the car. Second, if they get out of the car and I go the other direction, I can't outrun a bullet. I mean, Superman is faster than a speeding bullet, but I certainly wasn't, and I wasn't going to get away. There was no way I could do that. Not to mention, okay, I would look guilty. I knew I wasn't the guy they were looking for, but if I ran, that might confirm in their minds that I was the guy they were looking for. Then on top of it all, I started walking. I kept walking slowly, deliberately. I didn't go too slow. I didn't go too fast. I just kept walking calmly. But my mind was racing, and I'm starting to think to myself, what is everybody going to think? If these guys kill me, what would people think? Everybody's going to say, well, he must have done something wrong. Nobody just gets knocked off on the street, assassinated for no reason. He must have been dirty, or there must have been something. And there wasn't anything that I could recall. I never did anything wrong, and I had no connection to these guys at all, or drugs, or Colombians, or anything like that. And all of this is racing, and I'm imagining what's going on in my mind. So I keep walking. Now I'm walking, and the driver is looking at me. And I have to cross 37th Avenue eventually when I get to 83rd Street. But around 85th Street, after 2 blocks, I decided I'm going to just keep walking slow, and I'm going to cross the street. How am I going to cross the street? Well, I'm not crossing behind. I'm crossing in full view. I cross right in front of them, maybe 3 feet in front of their car, with 2 blocks to go. And I didn't look or stare at them or look defiant in any manner, way, shape, or form. Far from it. I just wanted to look normal as I possibly could, low-key as I possibly could, and give them, without being obvious, give them a good look at me. Now, I crossed the street in front of the car. I didn't know if they were going to run me over. They didn't. I crossed the other side. Now the passenger, he's staring at me and getting a very, very close look at me for the next 2 blocks. And I'm going slow, deliberate, just to give him every possible opportunity to see I wasn't the guy he was looking for. Finally, I come to my block, 83rd Street, and I have to make a right turn to walk half a block down to my apartment house entrance. And I made the right turn. And I didn't know if they were going to follow me or that would provoke them to shoot or anything else, but I still did the same thing, keeping a nice pace and not hurrying. Miracle of miracles, they didn't follow me. And that was a relief. I continued to walk until I reached my front door, half a block down the long block there. And when I got to the door, I took out my keys and I tried to put the key in the keyhole, and my hands were shaking. It took me 12 tries, I think, to find the keyhole with my key. I couldn't make it to the front door. That's how far gone I was and how tensed up I was. As a matter of fact, what saved me that night was I had good streetwise instincts, and that probably kept me alive more than anything else. And it brought to mind, later on, the famous words of King George VI, who told the British people in the Battle of Britain when they were being bombed by the Nazis. He went on the radio and told all the British folks to keep calm and carry on. And every time I hear that, I think of the Snake Eye 2 coming down 37th Avenue in Jackson Heights. Thanks for listening. Come back next week for another episode of Uncommon Law, lessons they don't teach in law school. I'm Judge Rudy Greco. Court is adjourned.